She discovered the incredible truth after yelling at a billionaire, her life-changing journey. Sarah whipped an order of pancakes at the bustling diner, her hands moving like clockwork. The smell of coffee filled the air while the sun spilled through the window, shining light on local families enjoying breakfast. But it was a day like any other until she overheard the billionaire, that polished man in a tailored suit, casually dismissing the struggles of her community. "They need to adapt," he chuckled, indifferent to the worries of the hard-working silver-haired waitress who had just served him. For Sarah, each word felt like a punch to the gut. In that moment, her heart raced. The weight of bills, the pressure of single motherhood, the ache of neighbors losing jobs, all of it swelled inside her like a storm. Flashes of Lily and Jake filled her mind, their innocent smiles were marred by their mother's stress. She watched the wealthy man relax in his seat, completely oblivious to the realities of the community outside his bubble of privilege. Frustration exploded within her. "You have no idea what we're going through," she shouted, her voice piercing through the chatter at the diner. The room fell silent, diners turning to look, eyes wide, shock rippling through the crowd. The emotional crescendo didn't stop there. With each passing moment, Sarah's words poured from her heart. She spoke of foreclosures, of missed meals, of families losing hope. The crowd leaned in, drawn to her authenticity like moths to a flame. Gasps. Murmurs. Life was stirring in the air, a tide of empathy and shared struggle. She felt it, the profound connection among strangers. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let us continue, but as the initial rush of adrenaline faded, reality kicked in. Sarah raised her eyes and found her parents standing at the back, disbelief etched on their faces. "What have you done?" her mother mouthed. Right there, the cheers of the crowd turned into muffled whispers. The energy shifted, and uncertainty slithered in. Friends began to question her judgment. Her best friend's glances now carried a flicker of jealousy instead of admiration. Sarah had ignited a spark, but with it came the smoke of division hovering over her family and her friendships. She felt the weight of the community's hope resting on her shoulders like a heavy coat. As days passed, Sarah learned to listen, to hear the stories of her neighbors, each tale a thread woven into the fabric of shared hardship and resilience. Inspired, she decided to take charge, organizing a community initiative with dreams of bridging the gap between the workers and the wealthy. Anticipation built as she prepared for the next public forum. The billionaire agreed to return, and as the date approached, Sarah stood before her community, heart racing. Would this be the moment that brings understanding, or would it deepen the divides? The faces of her loved ones surrounded her, expressions a mix of pride and fear. As his footsteps echoed towards the stage, Sarah braced for the possibility of change, realizing this journey was just beginning. Would he listen, or was she risking everything for nothing? The day of the public forum arrived, a warm breeze teasing the curtains in the town hall. Sarah stood in front of a small crowd that buzzed with tension. Faces were a mosaic of hope and skepticism. She straightened her back, recalling the electricity she had felt when she first spoke her truth. As the billionaire walked in, his suit crisp and tailored, there was a hush. He was no longer an imposing figure high on a pedestal. He was a man who had to step into the middle of their struggles, their stories. Sarah had prepared a speech, but the words danced nervously in her mind. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steadying. "We live in a world where our experiences of life can seem so far apart." Her gaze drifted to the back, where Lily and Jake sat wide-eyed, full of belief that their mom could change something. It made her heart swell. "Community comes from understanding," she continued. "We're not asking for handouts, we are asking for a seat at the table." She turned to the billionaire, who looked halfway interested, a faint glimmer of curiosity flashing in his eyes. "What if you could see beyond the walls of your empire?" What if you could truly understand our plight? The room held its breath as she invited him to share that. He cleared his throat, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. I'm not here to solve your problems, he started. The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. But I am listening. Her heart raced. Listening? Was that enough? People need to adapt, yes, he continued, but they also need opportunities. With those words, a crack formed in the wall of indifference that once surrounded him. Think of it as a partnership. A shift occurred in the gathering, murmurs rippled through the crowd, uncertainty mixing with curiosity. What did he mean by partnership? Sarah felt the need to seize this moment. Can we use this partnership to create training programs or business grants? A flicker of hope ignited in her chest. It may not have been much, but it was a step, a whisper of possibility. He nodded, the light in his eyes now more pronounced. I can introduce a grant program. Perhaps if I partner with the right local organizations, we can make this work. Applause erupted spontaneously, a tide of hope washing over the room. Sarah's heart soared. She had sparked something in him, just as she had sparked something in her community. However, as the clapping faded, a wave of doubt crashed over her. Could this be the start of something real, or were these just empty promises that would fade like a summer storm? Her mind raced. Were they mere words, or could actions follow? In the days that followed, Sarah worked tirelessly to define that partnership. Meeting after meeting, drafting plans, she balanced motherhood and community leader with her own fears simmering beneath the surface. The support swelled around her neighbors willing to help, local business owners offering their insight. Yet she also felt the weight of the naysayers, those who whispered doubts into her ear, reminding her of the risks. Late one night, she stared at her reflection, questioning every decision. Could she harness this momentum? What if it crumbled? Just then, her phone buzzed an invitation from the billionaire's office for a private meeting. Intrigued and anxious, she searched her heart. Was this her moment to influence something greater, or was she walking into a trap? The stakes were higher than ever. As she clutched the invitation, a sense of urgency thrummed under her skin. The course of her journey was about to shift again. Would the truth come to light, or would the comfort of silence return to stifle her community's voice? The night felt heavy with anticipation. Sarah stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her blouse, again and again. Each time she caught a glimpse of her reflection, it seemed like a stranger stared back confident, yet fraught with uncertainty. She was a mother, a community leader, and now, an unsuspecting negotiator in a high-stakes game. As she made her way to the billionaire's office, her thoughts spiraled. What did it mean to partner with someone like him? The roads of wealth and struggle felt impossibly far apart. The cool air of the evening brushed against her skin, igniting a mixture of resolve and apprehension. The office tower loomed ahead, a monument to power. Its glass facade reflected the setting sun, drowning the street in a golden hue. Stepping into the lobby, she felt the weight of all those eyes watching her. People came and went, some in suits, others in uniforms, each wrapped in their own narrative. Sarah held her breath and stepped into the elevator, joining the quiet hum of the machinery. When the doors slid open to the top floor, a palpable shift washed over her. The spaces were vast and cold, the sterile design felt like an echo of the very isolation she was fighting against. She approached the conference room, swallowing hard. Nerves danced like electricity through her, but she couldn't turn back now. The billionaire sat at the head of the glossy table, his posture relaxed but focused. He waved her in, his expression unreadable. As she sat down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting could define everything. Thank you for coming, Sarah, he said, his voice smooth but lacking warmth. I wanted to discuss how we can move forward with the grant program. Right, she replied, her voice much steadier than she felt. I believe this could transform lives. It's more than just money, it's about rebuilding trust and fostering real opportunities. He nodded, acknowledging her passion. But inside, Sarah felt the doubt rising like steam. Do you really understand what we need? She pressed before she could think better of it, the words slipping out in a moment of vulnerability, his brows furrowed slightly. I'm trying to. That's why I'm here. A spark ignited in Sarah. But can you truly empathize with the struggle? Can you walk into our world and see the families scraping to make ends meet? The billionaire leaned back, considering her words. His gaze shifted to the sprawling city visible through the glass walls. I didn't grow up with these challenges, but I believe in change and my investments reflect that commitment. Investments? She asked, a flash of indignation momentarily clouding her judgment. You can't just write a check and think that will fix it. This is our life. Her heart pounded at her boldness, but the honesty felt refreshing. He looked taken aback, glancing down at his notes. I'm not underestimating the depth of your struggles, Sarah. I hope. She interrupted, her voice rising. Hope isn't enough when we're drowning. His gaze finally locked onto hers with an intensity that sent a shiver up her spine. Then what do you want me to do? A moment hung in the air, thick with tension. Sarah took a breath. I want you to see us. Really see us. In that instant, she felt a crack begin to form in his armor. His features softened, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. It was a glimpse of the man behind the billionaire mask. The conversation shifted then, words spilling from their mouths, each more vulnerable than the last. She shared stories of her neighbors, their struggles and dreams, the faces behind the statistics. As the hours slipped by, the tension eased, and even the billionaire seemed less like a stranger and more like a man trying to reconcile his fortune with the world outside his door. But just as Sarah felt momentum building, a question echoed in her mind. Would his listening turn into genuine action, or was this yet another delusion in the facade of change? With the flicker of hope gently rekindled, she left the office that night, a tight knot of uncertainty lingering in her gut. The dawning realization struck her: she had awakened something, yes, but it remained fragile. Could her truth be the key to unlocking real change, or would the billionaires of the world remain shackled to their indifference? Time would tell. Standing on the sidewalk, she gazed out into the bustling city, heart full of questions. What if this was her chance to not just influence one life but to change a community? Yet, as she stepped forward, it dawned on her all of it could slip away in a heartbeat. The journey was only just beginning. What would happen next when the walls would either crumble or fortify around them? Sarah walked away from the office, the weight of their conversation pressing down on her shoulders. The streets buzzed with life, but she felt like a ghost moving through a world that seemed both vibrant and distant. The city, with its twinkling lights and chaotic energy, felt foreign now, each thrum of noise mocking her newfound doubts. As she hurried down the sidewalk, thoughts raced in her mind. Had she pushed too hard? What if her words had only built a wall instead of fostering connection? She replayed their exchange over and over, trying to decipher the flicker of vulnerability she'd seen in him. Was it real, or just a glimpse of her own idealism taking shape? With each step, Sarah's heart pounded louder, its rhythm a frantic drum in her ears. She stole a glance at her phone, half expecting a message or a sign that he was considering her words, but nothing. The silence was deafening. Arriving at her neighborhood, she felt the familiar sense of home wash over her. The worn streets and dimly lit porches were reminders of everything she fought for. She could almost see the hopeful faces of the children she mentored and the weary expressions of parents struggling tirelessly. They were all depending on her, and on the billionaire who held their future in his hands. Sarah. A voice called out, snapping her from her thoughts. It was Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly neighbor, waving from her porch. Sarah approached with a smile, even though her mind still swirled with uncertainty. Hey, Mrs. Jenkins. You're looking well, Sarah said, forcing cheerfulness into her tone. It's the sunshine, dear. Mrs. Jenkins chuckled, then her expression turned serious. I saw you go into that big tower today. Meeting with the man, as they say? Yeah, I did, Sarah replied, her heart heavy. It went okay, I guess. Mrs. Jenkins eyed her carefully. Just okay? That's not like you, Sarah. You usually have fire in your belly. What are you worried about? Taking a deep breath, Sarah felt the urge to confide in the woman she'd known for years. What if he doesn't understand? What if he thinks he can change everything with just money? Money can't buy understanding, Mrs. Jenkins agreed gently. But sometimes, it can help to bridge gaps. You just need to make sure he sees what really matters. Looking into the older woman's wise eyes, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Mrs. Jenkins was right. Connecting people was what Sarah had always done best, and maybe the billionaire was just another puzzle waiting to be solved. As she bid Mrs. Jenkins goodnight and stepped into her home, an idea began to bloom. What if she could invite him into their world? Not just as a donor but as a true partner? She could organize a community event, a gathering where he could meet the families, hear their stories firsthand. It might just wake him up to the reality beyond his high-rise office. Her pulse quickened at the thought, excitement sparking in her chest. But what if he rejected the idea? What if it didn't go as planned? The doubts loomed like dark clouds, yet a sliver of determination broke through. Just then, her phone buzzed. Heart racing, she grabbed it with trembling fingers, praying it was him. It was a message, not from the billionaire, but from the community center. They needed her help with the upcoming fundraiser. Could she organize a showcase? Suddenly, Sarah knew what she needed to do. She stood tall, letting the fear suffocate under the weight of her purpose. Tomorrow, she'd call him. Tomorrow, she'd extend her hand and invite him into their lives in a way that demanded attention, not just charity. But what if he refused? The thought nagged at her as she settled into bed, the feeling of the night heavy once again. A complex web of hope, fear, and determination tangled in her mind. As sleep slipped away, one question echoed louder than the others. Would she find the courage to take that leap, or would fear keep her tethered to the familiar? The next chapter awaited, full of promise and peril. As dawn broke, the sun's golden rays seeped through Sarah's curtains, casting warm patterns across her room. She sat up, a sense of urgency igniting her spirit. Today was the day. She rushed through her morning routine, the coffee maker gurgling and steaming. With each sip, she felt her confidence rising. Yes, she could do this. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was for the families counting on her, the dreams waiting to be realized. She closed her eyes for a moment, summoning Mrs. Jenkins' words, make sure he sees what really matters. With purpose guiding her, Sarah grabbed her phone and stared at it. She hesitated. The screen felt heavy, almost mocking. What if he dismissed her? What if he laughed at her ambitious idea? Each pulse of doubt echoed in her mind like a distant thunder, but when she thought about the children's laughter and the parents' hopeful faces, she felt a surge of resolve. She needed to act. She barely could breathe from the adrenaline as she pressed his contact. It rang. Once. Twice. On the third ring, her heart raced uncontrollably. And then, a voice. Hello? Hi. It's Sarah, from yesterday. The words spilled out of her like a torrent. I've been thinking about what we talked about. I have an idea that could change everything. Sarah, he replied, his tone intrigued but cautious. What are you suggesting? She took a breath, steeling herself for this leap. I want to organize a community event. A showcase. It'll be a chance for you to meet the families, hear their stories. It's more than just charity. I want you to see the real impact your support could have. I know it could make a difference. There was a pause on the other end, a silence that felt stretched thin. Her stomach churned, each second feeling like an eternity. Could he possibly grasp the weight of what she was offering, what they could achieve together? What would this entail? He asked at last, a hint of curiosity lacing his voice. Sarah inhaled deeply, finding strength in her conviction. It'll be a chance for families to share their dreams. We can have games, food, performances. It's about connection, understanding. You're not just a name in a boardroom, you could be a part of something real, something that changes lives. I see, but why do you think I should do this? What's in it for me? There it was, the question that lay at the heart of the matter. How could he see beyond the corporate veil? Frustration flared within her, her thoughts racing. It's not about you gaining anything. It's about letting others share their stories. It's about building a bridge between your world and theirs. Embracing humanity in a way that transcends finances. Silence loomed again, and she feared she'd gone too far. But then he spoke, slowly. You're passionate, I like that. I really believe this could change everything if you're willing to take that step with me. She leaned forward, willing him to feel her conviction. I'll consider it, he said finally. Let's discuss details. Can you meet me tomorrow? Yes. Absolutely. Waves of relief washed over her, the tension in her chest easing slightly. They set a time and location, and as she hung up, the energy in her home swelled with promise. Sarah stood tall, feeling closer to her goal. She quickly jotted down plans for the showcase, her heart racing with newfound excitement. Ideas spilled forth like color on a blank canvas. The prospect of bringing the community together filled her with hope. Yet beneath that elation lurked a question that shaded her spirit. What if the bridge she was trying to build crumbled before it began? As she pondered the possibilities, shaping a vision of unity and connection, she realized she was pulling off a tightrope act. Would he take the leap into their world, or would they remain worlds apart? The sun hung high above, its warmth enveloping her as she stepped outside, a newfound fire lighting her way. Tomorrow would mark a turning point, but she felt the winds of uncertainty swirling around her. What part of his world could truly embrace theirs? As she walked through her neighborhood, staring at the laughter echoing from play areas, one thought overshadowed the others. Could a man who moved in circles of gleaming towers ever fully understand the beauty and struggle woven into the fabric of their community? The answer awaited just beyond the horizon, shrouded in potential. The sun was barely up, casting a soft glow on Sarah's sketchy notes strewn across her kitchen table. Each scribble represented a thread in her ambitious plan, a tapestry of hopes that she was desperate to see woven together. She stared at the paper, her heart racing as she envisioned the event taking shape. The more she thought about it, the clearer her vision became. Families gathered, laughter spilling into the air, children chasing each other with bright balloons. This was her dream, but it was more than just hers. Each family, each child, had a story waiting to be heard. The thought filled her with warmth and purpose. Focus, Sarah, she murmured to herself, shaking off the nerves. She needed clarity now, not just dreams. With a determined breath, she kicked off her shoes and paced the floor, rehearsing her pitch once more. What if he dismissed her again? What if he brushed off the event as just another corporate obligation? She couldn't let that happen. The stakes were so high. This wasn't merely about gathering funds, it was about making connections that could change lives. The clock ticked loudly, reminding her of time slipping away. She packed her bag with a sense of urgency and headed towards the community center, a place that echoed with the laughter and chatter of families, somewhere she felt truly at home. As she approached, she spotted Mrs. Jenkins sitting on a bench with some children, laughing as they handed out flyers for the showcase. The older woman's face brightened as she waved Sarah over. Sarah. You're just in time. The kids are so excited. Mrs. Jenkins' eyes sparkled with delight. Thanks to you. Sarah smiled, buoyed by Mrs. Jenkins' infectious spirit. But I need to talk to you about something important. Oh. What's on your mind? The curiosity in Mrs. Jenkins' voice made her heart swell. I have a meeting with him tomorrow, and I need your help. I want to gather stories, testimonials from families who want to participate. Make sure he hears them. I want him to feel their hopes and struggles. Mrs. Jenkins nodded, an understanding look in her eyes. I'll do whatever you need, dear. Those stories are the heart of the community. Encouraged by her support, Sarah felt as if the weight on her shoulders had lifted a notch. Together, they started gathering families to share their stories. They created a makeshift sign-up sheet, resonating with families who inhabited a world so often overlooked. Each person who signed their name added a brushstroke to the mural. Sarah was creating pieces of lives intertwined, tales of triumph and challenge. All these voices mattered, and each one would strengthen her case, but still, unease lingered in the back of her mind. What if tomorrow didn't go as planned? What if he came and saw only numbers and figures and missed the warmth of the shared humanity? Determined to silence her doubts, Sarah pored over the plans for the event late into the evening. She lost herself amidst sketches and notes, imagining the chatter, the connections. And then she found herself scribbling a last-minute message to him, knowing he deserved to feel the emotion behind the invitation. As she placed the note in an envelope, she felt a sudden fire in her chest, a sense of purpose. Everything could change tomorrow. She had to believe that the bridge she desperately wanted to build was possible. Just before bed, she glanced at the clock. Tomorrow wasn't just another day. It was a leap into the unknown and the moment everything could shift. The thought filled her with both excitement and dread. What if his response rang out, left her heart shattered? Would she be prepared for that? As sleep whispered its lullaby, her mind buzzed with possibilities and fears. She closed her eyes, unwilling to let uncertainty crumble her hope just yet. She had to believe in the potential awaiting just beyond the horizon. When tomorrow dawned, would she embrace a new path, or would she find herself facing another wall? Just as the sun peeked over the horizon, casting golden rays across the landscape, Sarah awoke with a jolt. The soft sounds of morning filtered into her room, but her heart felt heavier than the weight of the blankets. It was here today. The day she had envisioned so carefully, but now it was tinged with anxiety. She quickly showered, the water cascading over her, washing away the remnants of sleep but not the apprehension lingering in her mind. She dressed with purpose, pulling on a bright yellow dress that felt like a ray of sunshine. It was the outfit she reserved for days that needed a little extra courage. As she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair, a whisper of doubt crept in again. What if this was all a waste? What if he just nodded politely and left, oblivious to the lives she fought so hard to represent? Riding the bus, she clutched the envelope with the note tightly, her knuckles white against the smooth paper. Fellow commuters passed her by, lost in their own thoughts, their own lives, and she felt a deep longing for each of their stories to come alive. They all knew struggles, just like those families she had connected with. What if she could weave a narrative that spoke for them all? When she finally reached the community center, the familiar scent of coffee mingling with the dusty books on the shelves calmed her frayed nerves. Mrs. Jenkins was already there, comforting a young boy who had begun to cry about losing his balloon in a tree. Sarah watched, enamored by the elderly woman's kindness, and the boy's tears fell like tiny pearls, reminders of innocence mingled with life's disappointments. "Hey, you!" Mrs. Jenkins spotted Sarah and beamed. "Are you ready?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." But inside, her heart raced, thoughts swirling with hopes and fears. As they set up for the meeting, families began to filter in, their faces bright with anticipation. There was a palpable energy in the room, a shared excitement that filled the air. Sarah felt her heart lift. This was her community, her people. She spent the morning gathering stories, hearing brave voices that spoke of dreams and challenges. Each story punctured her doubts, reinforcing her belief that what she was trying to do really mattered. Even as she shared her own voice, she felt the power of connection growing stronger, weaving a fabric of togetherness. But as the clock ticked toward the scheduled meeting time, a shadow crossed her mind again. He would arrive soon, his reputation preceding him like storm clouds before rain. What if he walked through that door, and all her hopes crumbled as he showed a lack of understanding or empathy? Just as she was wrestling with those fears, the door swung open. Tall and imposing, the man entered, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. There was something unnerving about his presence, yet Sarah felt a flicker of resolve, the stories of the families behind her urging her forward. This was the moment. She stepped forward, clutching her envelopes and notes, standing tall even as her palms became clammy. As he approached her, the air felt charged, brimming with the potential of change. "Hello, Sarah," he said, his voice echoing in the room. "I've heard a lot about you." What would she say? Would she collapse under pressure, or would her community's stories break through the fortress he had built around himself? The truth hung between them, a shared heartbeat waiting to be heard. Before she could falter, she took a deep breath and began, "Thank you for coming. I have something important to share." But as she spoke, she could sense a flicker of something beneath his steely exterior. Curiosity, perhaps, or was it something deeper? It made her heart race as curiosity and urgency collided within her. What would happen when he finally heard those stories? Would it break the ice surrounding his heart or reinforce the walls? With every word, she easily fell into a rhythm, driven by passion and hope. Even so, uncertainty hung thick in the air. When would the tipping point come? Would he listen, or would he turn away? As she reached the crux of her proposal, she looked into his eyes, searching for a spark of understanding, waiting for the moment that could change everything. The room held its breath, a sea of anxious faces waiting for the wave of change Sarah hoped to bring. Her heart thundered in her chest as she spoke, the words tumbling out like a river finally breaking free from a dam. These stories matter because they're not just numbers or statistics. They are families. They are dreams. They are my friends. She could see a flicker of recognition in his eyes, something shifting. It sent a jolt of adrenaline rushing through her. She continued, feeling momentum build as her passion ignited the air around them. A single act of kindness can change a life. Just as a single decision can transform a community. His brow furrowed slightly, and she began to wonder if he was grappling with something deeper. She pressed on, fueled by the hope that his icy exterior might just be a mask. There are children who go hungry every day, families forced to choose between rent and food. You have the power to change that. As she spoke, silence enveloped the room. Even the children's whispers faded, all attention locked onto the tension between her and this man who stood as a proverbial wall. His eyes flickered toward the door, and for a heartbeat, Sarah feared he would step back into the world he belonged to. Suddenly, he leaned closer, his sunglasses slipping down slightly. Do you really think a speech can change anything? His voice was low, yet the challenge hung in the air, exposed and raw. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of those in the room behind her. It's not just a speech. It's the voices of the people. It's about community. She felt her confidence swell, ignited by the imagining of all those families whose lives depended on this moment. There was Mrs. Jenkins with her warmth, the boy who had lost his balloon, and everyone else who had shared a piece of their hearts with her. It's about looking beyond your own world. It's about empathy. He studied her intently, and for the first time, she noticed a crack in his armor. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. It felt like the room was holding its breath collectively, every soul waiting for the moment he cracked, that moment when barriers blurred and possibility glimmered. What do you expect of me? He asked, his voice softening ever so slightly. I expect you to listen, Sarah replied, her voice steady. And to act. There's so much you could do. You have the means to make a difference. The silence felt heavy, punctuated only by Sarah's ragged breaths. She held on to hope, but still, fear bubbled within her. What if he chose not to hear her? What if he reinforced exactly what her community feared: indifference from those who held the power to drive change? Then he spoke again, and his next words sent a ripple of surprise through the room. I'll give you a chance, but I need more than just stories. I need facts, numbers, and a plan. Relief washed over her momentarily, but it was quickly overshadowed by the tightening knot in her stomach. Of course, I can provide that. I can bring the families in, show you what they face every day. Numbers can be manipulated. I want to see faces, he replied, not backing down, challenging her yet again. A part of her sparkled at the prospect. They would show their lives. Their truth. But another part trembled, knowing transparency meant exposing raw vulnerability. Then let us do it. Sarah didn't hesitate, her voice rising a notch. I'll gather them. I'll set it up. If you are willing to meet them, to hear those stories firsthand, then we can make something happen. Around her, a mix of expressions bounced. Families began murmuring their thoughts of hope. A shift of energy ignited the air, tantalizing. Sarah was now standing on the brink of a profound change. As he studied her, the tension remained electric. I'll be there. I'll give you 2 weeks to prepare. After that, it's up to you to make this work, he said, pulling his sunglasses back into place. With a nod, he turned to leave, and just like that, the man who had loomed over her with uncertainty began to cut through the crowd of watchers and out the door. But the real battle was ahead. Would she be able to bring together the stories, the facts, the lives to paint a picture so vivid and undeniable that he would have no choice but to respond? What would happen in those 2 weeks? Could she rally her community, her friends, and the support she now felt rippling through the room? As the door clicked behind him, a hurried mix of excitement and fear bubbled within Sarah. The clock was ticking. Would she be able to bridge the gap between two worlds, or would this urgent chance slip away? The next 2 weeks spiraled into a whirlwind of activity. Sarah hardly noticed the days blending into one another. Each morning, she awoke with fire in her belly, determined to prepare for the meeting that could change everything. At the community center, families began to gather, sharing their stories and fears. She listened closely, soaking in every detail. Each tale was a thread in the complex tapestry that painted their community: mothers working multiple jobs, children dreaming of full bellies, fathers battling insecurities. These weren't just statistics, they were people, real and hurting. Sarah, a voice jolted her back to reality. It was Mrs. Jenkins, her kind eyes filled with concern. "Are you sure about this? It's a big risk. What if he doesn't take care?" "Mrs. Jenkins," Sarah replied, a tremor of doubt lacing her voice. "If we don't try, then we've already lost. They deserve to be seen." With determination set, she organized meetings and brought in families willing to share their experiences. Everything felt high stakes. There were moments of vulnerability when parents revealed their struggles and kids shared dreams of a better future. Tears flowed, but so did laughter, creating an energy that felt electric. Then came the night before the big day. Sarah stood in front of her bedroom mirror, questioning if she had done enough. Had she gathered the right stories? The right facts? A part of her wanted to retreat into the safety of doubt, but another part urged her to push forward. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. The day arrived, bright and filled with a strange mixture of promise and fear. Sarah scanned the room, dressed up and nervous. The families had come with hope in their eyes. They had rehearsed their stories, spending hours preparing for this moment. She had made sure they all understood how vital their voices would be. As the appointed time approached, Sarah could feel the tension mounting. Would he understand? Would he put the human element front and center in his decisions? The moment came. The door swung open, and, without missing a beat, he strode in. The sunglasses were gone, replaced instead with a hard expression, as if he were preparing for battle. Sarah's heart raced. This was at the point of no return. "Welcome," she said, stepping forward to introduce him to the families. "These are the voices that count. They are what you need to see." As he took his seat, she felt the weight of all their stories collective, as if 1,000 hearts beat in unison. One by one, each family spoke, sharing raw truths of struggle, resilience, and the flicker of hope amidst despair. The room filled with an atmosphere of honesty. Even as she watched in hesitation, Sarah noticed the slight shifts in his expression. Was that understanding she saw? The conversations flowed, sometimes contentious, but always relatable. The billionaire seemed both drawn in and defensive. It was a push and pull, a dance of a man realizing that the numbers he often relied on weren't just data. They were lives, each touching and real. Then it happened. A young boy, clutching a makeshift balloon, stood up and spoke softly. "I just want to have lunch at school, and not be hungry." Just like that, silence hung in the air, heavy and electric. Even the youngest's bravery pierced through the hardest of hearts. The billionaire shifted, discomfort flitting through his features. How was it possible that someone so wealthy could feel so vulnerable? Sarah could sense the profound moment blooming between them. It was as if he was teetering on the edge of change, but just then, she heard a whispering doubt creep back into her mind. Would this moment fortify a new path or simply fade into the background? When he finally opened his mouth to respond, the room stayed still, breaths held in a suspended state. The question hung in the air, pregnant with possibilities. Why should I care? And there it was, the crossroads of truth and fear. Would he break the wall, or would it stay impenetrable? Sarah stood frozen, heart racing. The stakes had never felt higher, and she knew it was now or never. Would this be the moment they had all been waiting for, or just another chance lost? Sarah's heart raced, the question echoing like thunder in the stillness of the room. The air felt charged, thick with anticipation, as she locked eyes with the billionaire. She could nearly hear the hearts of the families behind her pounding, a silent plea for understanding hanging palpably between them. "Why should I care?" he had asked, yet his voice wavered just a little. It was a crack, a momentary window into his vulnerability. Sarah inhaled deeply, feelings swirling within her fear, hope, and a newfound strength. "Because these are real lives," she blurted, urgency lacing her words. "Because behind every statistic, there's a child like that boy wishing for a full meal, dreaming of a better tomorrow. It's not just a number on a page, it's people, families, us." The room felt alive, the whispers of the audience growing louder in their shared stories of struggle. Voices began to join her, each echoing tales of perseverance: a mother holding 2 jobs, a father battling unemployment, children waiting in line for meals at school. "I know you operate in a world of profit margins," Sarah continued, finding her stride, "but even the most successful businesses thrive on understanding the human element. We're asking you to see us, to connect with us, not just with a check but with real empathy." His features shifted, the steely mask cracking further. She could see the gears turning in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to get it. But it costs money. "And how can you guarantee this investment will yield returns?" he questioned, clearly grappling with the realities of his world. Sarah pressed forward, her heart burning with conviction. "We're not asking for handouts. We're asking for partnerships, just like you said before. We're ready and willing to work. Together, we can create job training programs and community resources that empower families, providing a hand up, not a handout." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah's eyes scanned the faces surrounding her, reflecting both skepticism and hope. She could feel the energy transform as raw emotion filled the air. "But why me?" he asked again, vulnerability etched across his brow. "I could do anything with my resources, why this?" "Because you have the power to shift this narrative," she urged fervently. "You have the chance to change lives, to become part of our stories. Imagine giving these families the chance to thrive. This is an opportunity not just for us but for you as well. It's not just business, it's about legacy." Time seemed to stand still as vulnerability hung in the air, and silence drowned out all distractions. The billionaire stared at her, the walls of indifference finally crumbling. "All right," he said, voice softer. "Let us see what we can do together." Cheers erupted in the room, a swell of gratitude and hope crashing against the weight of fear. And for the first time, Sarah felt sure the transformation was happening. This wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was the beginning of a new chapter. The faces of the families around her lit up, filled with a warmth she had fought tirelessly for. She had ignited change. In the days that followed, Sarah worked tirelessly alongside the billionaire. Plans were laid out for job training initiatives, community centers launched, and funds directed where they were needed most. The hum of progress filled the air like magic, a sweet promise of a brighter future. Families began to thrive together. Children had food in their bellies, parents found jobs, and a renewed sense of hope swept through the neighborhood. Sarah became not just a voice but a bridge between worlds, creating spaces for understanding and connection. As she smiled at her children playing outside, she felt a mingling of joy and pride. She had faced the storm, battled through doubt, and emerged with not only her voice but the voices of her community heard loud and clear. "Sarah," Lily called with a bright grin. "Look at what I made." Her daughter ran towards her, an artwork in hand, the colors vibrant in the sunlight. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Sarah said, kneeling down to embrace her, tears glistening in her eyes. "Just like your mom's heart." With every sunrise, a new hope blossomed, crafted from the resilience of a community armed with the knowledge that they mattered. Sarah realized something profound: the real treasure was never just the money or partnership, but the connection they had forged, the change that sprung from shared humanity. "Look at us," she whispered to herself, eyes shimmering with pride. "We have come so far." This was the moment of transformation, and it would ripple into the future, echoing with possibilities. This is your moment too. Subscribe immediately to the channel now so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire change, Leave a like now and show your support to keep the good vibes rolling. Comment below to share your reactions and feelings about this ending. And for real, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to be part of this journey. Don't wait not even one more second.